Part 47. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziyi. Chapter 466. Chapter 466 The Battle of Violent. I naturally have no problem, just see how fellow deist Wei said shapeshift great art. Heaven catching reverend has no hands on the lust. This square is of course a great place, just for the shapeshift great art and shapeshift great art great treasure powerful energy are uncontrolled and damaged reverend extreme happiness shouldn't you blame me, Wei Suo smiled at reverend extreme happiness. It's just a square, you can do it if you dismantle it all. When we heard Wei Suo say this, reverend extreme happiness smiled and said, as for the surrounding buildings, there are so many fellow deists present, I want to resist some of the scattered powerful energy should not be a problem. If so many fellow deists can't stop it, then I am the extreme pleasure palace, even if you have all been removed, then I have nothing to say. That is of course, the temple outside, if I want to dismantle it, I can't take it off. Wei Suo haha smiled and said, Reverend extreme happiness, I heard heaven catching reverend, you are also a member of the Idle Cloud Alliance. True reverend extreme happiness blinked and looked at Wei Suo. So many fellow deists are waiting, what do you have to say, just say. He, nothing, there is only one last question. Wei Suo he smiled. The powerful energy of shapeshift great art and shapeshift great art great treasure is very difficult to control. If there is any loss in heaven catching reverend, Idle Cloud Alliance should not be bothering me. Wei Suo, don't you think it hurts me? As soon as we heard Wei Suo say, many of the surrounding cultivators couldn't help but breathe, and heaven catching reverend suddenly showed a cruel smile. Heaven catching reverend golden core 3rd layers cultivation base, usually the ordinary golden core 2nd layer cultivator, is completely out of his eyes. At this moment, his face looks calm, but Wei Suo says shapeshift great art, at the moment he in my heart, it is already very angry. In his heart at the moment, I feel that Wei Suo dared to be so contemptuous of him, just like the majesty that angered him, it was just looking for death. Why, do you think that I promised to fight with you? Do you want to deliberately admit defeat? But at the moment, Wei Suo, who has been very good at talking, is a face and sneer. The cultivator of the golden core 2nd layer, who died in my hands, is more than one person. Nice. If there is no snacking opportunity, there is no meaning in gambling. Heaven catching reverend's eyes suddenly smashed, and a cold and chilly killing intent spread out from him. Wei Suo, since you say so, so many fellow deists can prove that even if I am in the gambling it's my personal thing to kill you, and Idle Cloud Alliance will not find you in trouble for this. Shapeshift great art great treasure has no eyes. If you accidentally die in your hands, you will naturally have no complaints. Wei Suo has no cold roads with lust. Is this person really wanting to die with heaven catching reverend? Golden core 1st layers cultivation base, no matter how powerful, cannot win the golden core 3rd layer cultivator, the same surgery shapeshift great art, golden core 3rd layer cultivation base cultivator, powerful energy is better than golden. The cultivator of the core 1st layer cultivation base is displayed, and the treasure is several times. What is his control? I heard that he was able to kill the few golden core cultivators, just relying on immortal slaying vine. He wants to single out heaven catching reverend at this moment, he is looking for death. Heaven catching reverend was aggressive at first, bullying him, but he didn't attack. It's just like saying that shapeshift great art has been forbearing, but it's a must, if this person is killed by heaven catching reverend, if it's true and heaven catching reverend's divine ability is absolutely tempting and cannot be offended in the future. After hearing the conversation between heaven catching reverend and Wei Suo's, the rest of the golden core cultivator was blinking, and they all swept up and plunged all over the square. Wei Suo, you have to be careful. Nangang Yuking's eyes have always stayed on Wei Suo's, hesitated at the moment, and after saying this, he also vacated. Reassured Wei Suo smiled a little. Wait until you get to the back, save you any danger. Fellow deist Wei, I think you should take care of yourself first. On the square with hundreds of squares, it was empty in the blink of an eye, leaving only Weisuo and heaven-catching reverend standing in the middle, a great treasure, treasure of great treasure, and a high-powered great treasure, from the body of heaven-catching reverend come out. Heaven-catching reverend, the cultivator of the golden core third layer, even if it converges on all the scent of the body, it is natural to carry an unimaginable power. Hong. 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 At the same time as the exit, the golden treasure of the outside of heaven-catching reverend was expanded 3 times. The golden armor of the spiritual chi condense also expanded 3 times, and it turned into a 10-foot great treasure. His naked body naturally has no change to great treasure, but with his breath and the expansion of spirit light, his power is also climbing, causing a shock, making the rest of the cultivator look like his people. It seems to be high, great treasure. It feels like he is a few times more powerful than Weisuo, making Weisuo look very weak. Your true UN cultivation base is 2 layers higher than me. It is the cultivation base of the golden core third layer, but since it is a fair gambling, I don't want to take advantage of you, but Weisuo's look is nothing but a change of surging sound. Look at Reverend Extreme Happiness. When you wait for Reverend Extreme Happiness, with Shapeshift Great Art, let's start with Shapeshift Great Art. How is it? Nice. Weisuo, a young person like you, is really crazy enough. Reverend Extreme Happiness nodded, and heaven-catching Reverend was a little bit tolerant of fire chi, sending out a surging sound. 2 fellow deists are careful. Reverend Extreme Happiness frowned. After saying this, he didn't say much. He reached out and a red light flew from his fingertips. Chi. Just as Reverend Extreme Happiness reached out for a red light, a violent surging sound exploded in front of Weisuo's. I saw that at this moment, Weisuo inspired an antiquity ominous fire, not only the heaven overflowing river scroll from Huangyazi, but also the Black Bone Dark Lord, Shapeshift Great Art, mind-devouring bug was also sacrificed. For a time, the first layer of hustle and bustle gathered a number of brilliance, and smashed toward heaven-catching Reverend. You are too arrogant. The divine ability of the golden core third layer cultivator is not what you can imagine. If you use golden core directly with these Shapeshift Great Art great treasures, maybe it will make me jealous. Now, a face-to-face, you will give me a defeat. Weisuo stimulates heaven overflowing river scroll. It also stimulates the Shapeshift Great Art great treasure, which can be made of golden crystal light. 2 pieces Shapeshift Great Art great treasure, coupled with a Deo technique Shapeshift Great Art, is already at an almost extreme level, coupled with attacks by Black Bone Dark, which have given the presence of a great T-Reger half golden core cultivator have directly changed their face, expect to replace themselves, is absolutely unstoppable. But now in the face of such an attack, heaven-catching Reverend's mouth is a mockery of the emergence of a sneer out, in a cynical surging sound from his mouth. He suddenly appeared behind the 6 bright yellow brilliance, instantaneous rotation stirred together, formed a bright yellow pillars, fiercely toward the front of a blow. At the same time, countless bright yellow glows, also rushing out from the mouth of heaven-catching Reverend, formed a golden armor unicorn similar to the spiritual chi on the head. Pu. The bright yellow pillar and the golden armor kirin forward, the waves from the heaven overflowing river scroll, the antiquity ominous fire, the gold crystal light column, the black light column from the Black Bone Dark Lord, Weisuo's all offensives, all turned into ashes. Although the bright yellow pillar and the golden armor unicorn were all smashed, but with their own Shapeshift Great Art and golden core powerful energy, heaven-catching Reverend directly resisted Weisuo's chi. The eyes are just a flash. In front of heaven-catching Reverend, there is a cyan arrow like a bone refining, a hurricane around the cyan arrow. At this time, Weisuo seemed to feel bad, and the golden sunlight, rushing out of his eyebrows, formed the shape of an ancient heavenly dragon of the giant treasure. Let you know what it is called Shapeshift Great Art. I don't need golden core, is it still too late? In the sneer surging sound, heaven-catching reverend opened mouth, a strand of cyan brilliance spewed in front of the cyan arrow. The powerful energy emitted by cyan's small arrow obviously increased several times in an instant. The surging sound of Pa exploded, and I saw a cyan streamer made by the cyan arrow, and Weisuo will be instantly the purple ancient heavenly dragon rushed to smash. Wrong. But at this time, the whole heart of heaven-catching reverend is a fierce shock. After the broken heavenly dragon, there was a white light floating in it. This group of white light is a round, goose egg great treasure small core bead. On the core bead, there are countless light and light lines, and a thrilling terrifying scent. As soon as this thing appeared, Weisuo's immediately showed a cocky mask and gold mask. At the same time, Weisuo and everything outside him were all Weisuo's divine light. The screen is wrapped and flies backwards. Hong. Goose egg great treasure small white core bead, a fierce explosion, and instantly, countless light lines, the violent origin chi inflated infinitely. Annihilation golden core. The great treasure of the presence, the majority of the golden core cultivator, are fierce and embarrassing, and they all immediately send out their own brilliance, blocking in front of themselves. Even Reverend Extreme Happiness is immediately a face of great treasure, a circle of red light radiating from his body. Formed a strip of barriers that protected all the temples behind him. The flame of the explosion filled the square of hundreds of squares in an instant. Pa! 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 I saw the divine light screen outside Weisuo is also broken, but at the time of the breakdown of spirit light, there is always a new brilliance in front of him. At the edge of the square, Weisuo is like a mainstay. Generally stopped. The annihilation golden core is not far from the secret place of heaven-catching reverend, so heaven-catching reverend is naturally equivalent to completely block the powerful treasure of this annihilation golden core. Ah! The figure of heaven-catching reverend is completely submerged in the flame of the explosion, only a surging sound violent screaming surging sound, with a surging sound heaven shaking cracking surging sound passed out. Dedication. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziyi. Chapter 467. Chapter 467 Asar reveals coming. Boom long. Boom long. It seems that a volcano of a giant great treasure erupts in the square middle, and the ancient treasure of the horror treasure is violently gone, and the jade ground layer becomes ashes. The golden core cultivator around the square is a means of protecting the building behind it. This makes the origin chi, which is scraped out, all blocked from the sky, forming a radiant flame. List of Naruto antagonists #Akatsuki off Metal Dan. Yellow hair, you actually use the shapeshift great art great treasure directly to me. At this time, a smashed bright yellow figure emerged from the beginning of the scattered away origin chi. This person is naturally heaven-catching reverend. I saw that the purple shapeshift great art on heaven-catching reverend has become the same as the broken sack. All of the body is a hole, and the body is turned into a bright yellow. It feels like a naked body becomes a piece. Essence metal is average. However, the meat is also obviously covered with various kinds of wounds. The golden armor of the spiritual chi condense on the body is also glory, swaying and unstable, and looks like it should be scattered directly. There is no direct death. Now the presence of the cultivator has completely changed a want to shapeshift great art, just feel that heaven-catching reverend can survive, is simply not easy, because the light to resist the spread of the flame, the presence of the cultivator can be felt. Weisuo just excited this annihilation golden core powerful energy, but also in a golden core second layer Vatar golden core powerful energy. And heaven-catching reverend is still working hard with Weisuo. When the annihilation golden core exploded, he couldn't even use too many means to equitably use only a few divine ability to resist this. Annihilation golden core. Changed the ordinary golden core second layer cultivator, and now it is dead and there is no residue left. Not dead. Weisuo's eyes flashed sharply. Obviously, Wei Suo is holding the mind of killing heaven-catching reverend. In the cultivation world, whoever is the fist of the great treasure who is qualified to speak, this heaven-catching reverend initially oppressed Wei Suo with his cultivation base, secret place, and even threatened to kill him at the beginning. Wei Suo has also been killing him for a long time. And Wei Suo knows that even if heaven-catching reverend is forced by the situation, he will not deal with him at this intercourse. Some of his words and deeds today make him feel uncomfortable. With his identity and cultivation base, he will definitely secretly start with Wei Suo. Only you, enough strength, can let others fear you, or else others will move your idea. Wei Suo has been forbearing until now, agreeing to the gambling, and even deliberately let heaven-catching reverend rely on the idling to meet the first game. Deliberately to finally touch heaven-catching reverend, is to have a good intention in the heart, to do it in one fell swoop, kill heaven-catching reverend. Standing in front of so many golden core cultivators, and standing in front of some low-grade cultivators, is completely different, so Wei Suo also sacrificed the annihilation of Yeling's golden core. Golden core. And if you sacrifice the annihilation golden core in peacetime, the other party can't resist it. You can try to dodge, but at the moment, in the lust condition of the gambling, the other party can't escape so many ranges, only hard block. But with this annihilation golden core, there is no direct killing of heaven-catching reverend, which is the great treasure that Wei Suo's expected. Heaven-catching reverend, are you even able to stop this? It's _crew_ first name _Commonwealth _26. With a glimmer of gaze, Wei Suo had an idea, pretending to be a panic, and at the same time he was in a hurry, inspiring antiquity ominous fire and heaven overflowing river scroll and controlling black bone dark lord. Attack towards heaven catching reverend. Wei Suo, you are looking for death. At the same time that Wei Suo deliberately surging sound fearful giant treasure, heaven catching reverend also issued a surging sound called surging sound. The life of shapeshift great art great treasure. Heaven catching reverend actually has a refining of the golden core shapeshift great art great treasure. The sharply called surging sound, the many golden core cultivators present were again taking a breath of air, and saw a pair of golden core sunlight and flames squirting from the heaven catching reverend mouth, showing a ponte great treasure bright yellow golden core. This bright yellow golden core is obviously more great than the Wei Suo's golden core. At the moment, the front of the golden core, connected with the numerous light lines emitted from the golden core, is actually a silver white essence metal monument. With the attention of golden core sunlight, the essence metal monument has also swelled to a long distance, with a unicorn-like rune on both sides, like a shield, along with the golden core of heaven catching reverend. The suppression of Wei Suo's shackles. Hong. I saw the essence metal monument and the brilliance of Wei Suo, and the brilliance of Wei Suo was completely shattered. The essence metal monument and the golden core and heaven catching reverend behind it are also fierce. Immediately, it seems to be the essence metal and the bright yellow golden core, a naked body with golden core, and continue to crush towards Wei Suo. Fellow Daoist Wei, leave your hands behind. Seeing such a lust scene, there was a sneer on Wei Suo's face. But at this moment, Wei Suo's brows suddenly, the figure of Reverend Extreme Happiness rang at this time, a terrifying pressure, falling from one side in the air, a dazzling red light a fierce push, it turned out that heaven catching Reverend's naked body flew out of the square. At the moment, the square below, in fact, has completely disappeared from the square. It is a deep pit with a depth of more than 10 feet, which is filled with jade mixed with fine gray. What happened? This change made many cultivators present, and couldn't help but focus on the sudden Reverend Extreme Happiness. I saw the red light on the face of Reverend Extreme Happiness. It was a flash at the moment. Reverend Extreme Happiness, why are you, do you want to shelter this person? This change made heaven catching Reverend look sullen and angry at Reverend Extreme Happiness. Heaven catching Reverend, you got it wrong, I didn't want to see you any surprises, so I shot the shapeshift great art. Reverend Extreme Happiness looked at Heaven Catching Reverend and said indifferently. You say what? Heaven Catching Reverend, a pair of 7 smoke, you said that I only hit, cannot kill this, but it will not be his opponent? If he still has shapeshift great art great treasure like Annihilation Golden Core, Reverend Extreme Happiness looked at Heaven Catching Reverend and said. Even if there is another one, the most is the loss of both. You are doing this now, is it that I lose? Heaven Catching Reverend sever surging sound. An Annihilation Golden Core, Reverend Extreme Happiness has a deep look at Weisuo, who is standing on the sneer of the surging sound. If he has 2, 3 Annihilation Golden Core in his hand. Annihilation Golden Core again. Heaven Catching Reverend at the moment, I wanted to say that Annihilation Golden Core is very difficult to see in the ancient cultivation world. It is a rare one in the cultivation world, and it is a wasteful shapeshift great art great treasure. It is not a great treasure cabbage. A cultivator will have 2, 3 in hand. But with the deep look of Reverend Extreme Happiness, the surging sound of Heaven Catching Reverend is a sudden stop. He has so many Annihilation Golden Cores on his body. AIDS_crew_ first name _Commonwealth _26 IDS_crew_ first name _Commonwealth _26. With so many Annihilation Golden Cores coming out, who can resist it? Surging sound around the air, it has already become a piece. Because everyone sees it at the moment, Weisuo is in the face of a lust, and the shapeshift great art great treasure around the body. In his hand, there are 3 or 4 rounds of core bead that are sleek and light, and they are included in the treasure receiving pocket. These 3 or 4 things are all with the unique atmosphere of Golden Core, all of which are genuine Annihilation Golden Core. Looking at the current posture, Heaven Catching Reverend can only block an Annihilation Golden Core at most, and the 2 will live to kill Heaven Catching Reverend. At this moment, most of the great treasures of the Golden Core cultivator, and Weisuo's eyes have already brought a deep respect. Weisuo is the strength of the naked body in the shapeshift great art, and the Annihilation Golden Core played a complete deterrent effect. At this moment, all the Golden Core cultivators have completely re-examined his strength. In the hearts of these Golden Core cultivators, Weisuo has now directly risen to the level of Old Devil of Golden Core 3rd layer. Nice. 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 Unexpectedly, fellow Daoist Wei turned out to be divine ability. This time, the gambling is losing. Reverend Extreme Happiness, in the next case, owes you a lust, there will be a chance to report in the future. After a while, his face turned white, and the smashed Heaven Catching Reverend screamed these 2 words, and immediately under the magnificent light flashes, he flew directly out of the Extreme Pleasure Palace. Pu. Many of the cultivators present were a kind of god lust who wanted to laugh and didn't dare to laugh, because the shapeshift great art of Heaven Catching Reverend was very ragged and vacated, but the wind was blowing and the buttocks were exposed. In the capacity of Heaven Catching Reverend, defeated by a Golden Core 1st layer cultivator, it is already a face loss, so I feel that no shapeshift great art stays on this intercourse and immediately leaves, but this is anxious to leave. Even one pipe shift great art clothes have not changed first, but at this moment, it is more faceless. I don't think Reverend Extreme Happiness is so sharp. It's really a loss. But what these cultivators don't know at the moment is that Weisuo, who looks calm at the moment, is very annoyed and sighed in his heart. He doesn't believe that Heaven Catching Reverend will not find himself in trouble in the future after he has suffered a loss in his own hands. This time he made up his mind to kill Heaven Catching Reverend directly. And he was already calculating. When he killed Heaven Catching Reverend, he immediately grabbed his Golden Core, so he lost up to 2 to 3 Annihilation Golden Core, but he could get back a Golden Core 3rd layer. Golden Core of Cultivation Base, as long as you have enough strength to suppress the Golden Core of the Golden Core 3rd layer and refine it into the Annihilation Golden Core, then the power of the Golden Core 5th layer cultivator may be resisted. Can't live. If you go back to the heavenly great treasure, you might be able to directly design and kill the blood spirit old ancestor, and remove this hidden great treasure. But unexpectedly Reverend Extreme Happiness at the moment is decisive shot, Wei Suo very clear, if oneself disregard Reverend Extreme Happiness shot, then cast Annihilation Golden Core words, Reverend Extreme Happiness and other people will certainly full shot, oneself or kill not heaven catching Reverend, so at this moment although the heart is extremely annoyed, but only first, otherwise may lead to unexpected consequences. I don't think fellow Daoist Wei is such a divine ability. Reverend Extreme Happiness shook his head indifferently and reached for a wave. The 2 pill bottles in the great treasure hall, which were filled with genuine Dao pill and aphrodisiac, were rolled out and flew toward Wei Suo. Wei Suo did not move the surging sound color to take over the 2 pill bottles. Go, fellow Daoist can continue this intercourse. Reverend Extreme Happiness seems to have never happened before, and has turned around and plunged into the great treasure hall behind him. Dedication. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 468. Chapter 468 by Who Reverend. If there is no such area of gambling limit, like this Annihilation Golden Core, can deal with heaven catching Reverend, it is unknown, but this person is not disorderly, so the layout, not only fish to good secret place do not say, also obviously want to kill heaven catching Reverend, scheming so cunning deep, perhaps usually against the enemy, there will be many variables, even in the outside encounter, equality against the enemy, I am afraid the outcome is also unknown number, heaven catching Reverend may not be able to deal with him. Vertex Novels hit the novel. No wonder that both Huan Yazi and Reverend Diaoshat are dead in his hands. It's the black-skinned shapeshift great art great treasure. There is the powerful energy of the Golden Core first layer cultivator. His monster beast is mind devouring bug. How can it spur the shapeshift great art, and the powerful energy is still so powerful? With this person's divine ability, I am afraid there is no opponent in the cultivator of the cultivation base below the Golden Core third layer. Annihilation Golden Core needs to be refining with the cultivator Golden Core, especially the consumable shapeshift great art. There aren't many ancients for nearly 1,000 years, I have never heard of this shapeshift great art great treasure. There are so many people in this hand, certainly not from what ancient ruin got, it must have been the shapeshift great art of the refining of the Annihilation Golden Core. The Golden Core cultivator at the scene swept back to the great treasure hall with Reverend Extreme Happiness. Golden Core cultivator is a one-on-one. Although Wei Suo's strength is very shocking to them, it is only a moment that many Golden Core cultivators present have made many correct inferences in their hearts. Wei Suo, how did you have such a cultivation base? Nangong Yuking swept over Wei Suo and couldn't help but say such a sentence. Wei Suo's heart suddenly became hot. Looking at Nangong Yuking, who was rushing toward herself, Wei Suo couldn't help but think of her first time at the auction, seeing Nangong Yuking in a white dress at her in the auction. Go, let's go in and say how can there be such a cultivation base, but it will take a long time to finish, and it is not safe to say it here. It is troublesome to listen to them. Looking at Nangong Yuking warmly, Wei Suo blinked. You are not only completely offended by heaven catching Reverend, but there are so many great treasures, and you are not afraid of others dealing with you. I deliberately let them see it. Now I want to stand up and shake things. I don't dare to move my mind. How did you become the disciple of Reverend Extreme Happiness? This incident is also unclear for a while, and I will tell you after leaving here. Between the talks, Wei Suo and Nangong Yuking also swept back to the great treasure hall, because Nangong Yuking is a disciple of Reverend Extreme Happiness, and the generation is much lower than the cultivator, so after entering the great treasure hall, I am sitting on a chair, just standing next to Wei Suo's. I don't think fellow Daoist turned out to be great treasures famous domineering Reverend. I and Lu fellow deist are really rude. Wei Suo is still back to Reverend Black Wolf and Lucy. When she sees Wei Suo, Reverend Black Wolf can't help but low grigging sound. I am sorry, but I am afraid that I will cause a lot of unnecessary troubles, so I hide my identity. Reverend, you have helped the great treasure underneath, and you will never forget it. If you can afford it, the great treasure family will be intercourse friends. Wei Suo smiled at Reverend Black Wolf Enlvich and apologized. It's a privilege for me to be friends like intercourse fellow deist Wei. Reverend Black Wolf and Lucy didn't dare to go back to the ceremony. Which fellow deist is starting now? Reverend Extreme Happiness doesn't matter what Wei Suo and others look like, and after all the golden core cultivators have returned to the great treasure hall, there is nothing nonsense to say. In any case, I have been ugly in front of the crowd, let me start first. A somewhat gratifying surging sound came out, but it was just refining the dozu leaves of Tiantanzuzu. After entering the great treasure hall, the smell of the old man was also filled with the entire great treasure hall. Do fellow deist, please. Reverend Extreme Happiness nodded lightly. The next time I come, I want to intercourse to change the spiritual herb or medicine pill that can extend some life essence. If there is a suitable one, you can use this object to intercourse. This object was identified by fellow deist Wei, and its mystery does not need to be said more. Heavy water Xuanzu. The golden core cultivator in the entire great treasure hall suddenly became alive, because at this moment, the dead leaves are the small treasure, the shell is crystal-like, but the inside is full of azure liquid naked body ancient shapeshift great art great treasure, heavy water Xuanzu. Wei Suo's heart is also a fierce move. The explosive energy of this heavy water Xuanzu is estimated to be slightly worse than the annihilation golden core, but it has a strong suppressive effect on the fire attribute shapeshift great art great treasure and the shapeshift great art. Attribute is the powerful cultivator of shapeshift great art and shapeshift great art. The effect of this object may still be on the annihilation golden core. This thing can be said to make Wei Suo very heartwarming. However, Wei Suo is not at all good at improving the life essence of medicine pill and spiritual herb. This thing is estimated to be waiting for others to intercourse. After all, for some of the younger, life cores that don't matter, the golden core cultivator prefers to use a sharp herb that adds life essence in exchange for a life-saving bottom shift great art great treasure. Do fellow deist, can you see if this golden deer deo pill is suitable? Sure enough, just a few breaths, a middle-aged tall cultivator dressed in a red gold robes and a Taoist man reached out and a golden-colored medicine pill flew in front of Du Yi. This golden medicine pill great treasure is about a long-eyed great treasure, and it seems to be covered with scales. The strange thing is that the brilliance of the brilliance is faintly condensed outside the medicine pill with the appearance of a golden deer. This golden deer deo pill said that he can extend the life essence for 20 years. Of course, I would like to thank fellow deist. As soon as I saw this medicine pill, Du Yi immediately became ecstasy. Directly to the great treasure, the medicine pill was put into the bag, and at the same time, he reached out and waved the heavy water Xuanzu in the hand. The middle-aged Taoist lost the past. In addition to this intercourse, I still have an intercourse. I want to ask for a shapeshift great art that can hide my body. After all, the smell of my body can only be used to scare the monster beast. In front of you, fellow deist, the divine mystic realm cultivator has been faked. Get good things in a row. Du Fuye is also a heart lust great treasure, and said with a smile. When he said this, Du Yi's eyes were always swept by Wei Suo's intentionally or unintentionally. He looks like this, and naturally makes Wei Suo know what he thinks about shapeshift great art. Do fellow deist, there is a concealing aura technique. After a slight smile, Wei Suo came out of surging sound. I don't know what fellow deist Wei wants to use for intercourse. Du Yi is already waiting for Wei Suo to say so, immediately asked the interface. After Wei Suo's slight indulgence, he looked at Du Hui. I want a sharpshift great art that I want to temper my heart. I don't know if Du fellow deist has such a shapeshift great art. I don't have this kind of shapeshift great art. Du Yi frowned, but it was a look at the next, lang surging sound. I don't know if you have the shapeshift great art, and you can use the intercourse to change. I have a Vajra heart refining method. The voice of Du Yi just fell, a middle-aged bald golden robe golden core cultivator, surging sound color out of surging sound. There is some interest in Du fellow deists Tianmu gods. Alright, Wei Suo didn't know what the Tianmu god of Du Yi was. But I saw Du Yi biting his teeth, nodding his head, not much to say, just took out a note, blue note, and put it on. After the shapeshift great art was recorded inside, he reached out and used the piece of the blue intercourse to change the same piece of green character that the bald cultivator prepared. Subsequently, Du Yi immediately threw the blues of the intercourse to Wei Suo. This is to fellow deist, what you want, shapeshift great art. Wei Suo divine consciousness. After carefully scanning the note with the Vajra heart refining method, he also made a note of the note and threw it to Du Yi. The record in his note is only the upper half of Hidden Dragon Bead Spitting Secrets. As for the lower half of Hidden Dragon Bead Spitting Secrets, it is a matter of great treasure, and its secret point is naturally not for Du Yi. No. Thank you for fellow deist Wei Du Kuei. Only divine consciousness swept cyan jade talisman twice. Between the eyes flashed, the breath of the body all converge, giving the impression that he suddenly changed from golden core stage cultivation base to thought division 5th layer. The cultivator. Once again, I was very grateful to Wei Suo, and the old man sat down with satisfaction. Well, Du fellow deist has nothing to intercourse easily. Which of the following fellow deist wants intercourse easy? Reverend Extreme Happiness smiles lightly. Well, I want to use a level 7 high-level fire attribute monster core and a level 7 high-level wind attribute monster core. A middle-aged cultivator dressed in white and white Confucianism nodded and stood up. I have one, fellow deist sees if it works. How long have you been at this Extreme Pleasure Palace? I arrived at the Extreme Pleasure Palace 6 months ago. Because the next few things are not what Wei Suo needs, plus he and Nangong Yuking are really a long-awaited reunion, so it is easy to watch these golden core cultivator intercourse while watching the fun, while can not help secretly. And Nangong Yuking spoke up. How did you know that I was here? To be honest, until this time, Nangong Yuking still can't believe that Wei Suo is in front of himself, and has such an amazing cultivation base. I just happened to go to Reverend Black Wolf's Dongfu, where I found out that Jade Talisman was on. Wei Suo looked at Nangong Yuking with a smile and smiled. Is that you yourself, or did you ask the female cultivator to help you? I was asked by the female cultivator to help me. I have been retreating here before. When I saw Wei Suo's message on the waist, Jade Talisman, Nangong Yuking didn't know what was going on, and his face suddenly turned red. The next time I come, I want to buy the Shapeshift Great Art Crystal. Each broken Shapeshift Great Art Crystal can be exchanged with 10 Blue Flame Marrow Washing Pill or a Shaorank Shapeshift Great Art Great Treasure. At this time, a surging sound, but suddenly Wei Suo's brow jumped, attracting his attention. Follow the surging sound. I saw the surging sound at this moment, is wearing a dark green Shapeshift Great Art clothing. The body of the spiritual chi is emerald green, condense a fox-like cultivator. This cultivator is the cultivator of the Golden Core 2nd layer, and Wei Suo was previously heard by Reverend Black Wolf and Lucy. This person is named Reverend, which is a secret place of heavenly profound continent central region and northern part intercourse. The name Rogue Cultivator is arguably the most distant one among all the cultivators present. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 469. Chapter 469 Matters Important. Blue Flame Marrow Washing Pill. 10 Blue Flame Marrow Washing Pill or a Deo rank lower Shapeshift Great Art Great Treasure intercourse for a broken Shapeshift Great Art Crystal. The exit of the Fox Reverend not only attracted Wei Suo's attention, but the rest of the Golden Core cultivator was also taken aback. Vertex Novels, Handwriting Novels. Blue flame marrow washing pill is the unique medicine pill of the heavenly profound continent northern part. It has the effect of cutting the bone and washing the cultivator. Deo ranks shapeshift great art great treasure, naturally needless to say. The shapeshift great art crystal is a unique crystal stone that is required to transmit the shapeshift great art array. Now, on the entire heavenly profound continent, except for a few ancient shapeshift great art arrays left by ancient. The transmission of the shapeshift great art array is equipped with this crystal stone, and such crystal stone has not found any other use of secret place, but can be used to transmit the shapeshift great art array. Although this unique crystal stone is rare, it is used to transmit the shapeshift great art array. A powerful energy will take decades to slowly deplete, so the value of this crystal stone on heavenly profound continent, it's definitely not worth 10 blue flame marrow washing pill or one of the Shao ranks shapeshift great art great treasure. By who reverend, the value of the shapeshift great art crystal is not low, but it is not of such value in peacetime. Slightly silenced for a moment, immediately there is a grey aging old cultivator with a face that looks very stable. Surging sound, you are now intercourse with such value to change the shapeshift great art crystal. Is this new for this crystal stone? The mystery is not successful. While the grey-haired old man was surging sound, the rest of the cultivator did not speak. These golden core cultivators are also not fools. If there is any new mystery found in shapeshift great art, these golden core great treasure cultivators will definitely not take the broken shapeshift great art crystal out of intercourse. After all, the medullary wash is useful for the low-grade cultivator, and the shadow shift great art great treasure is also somewhat attractive to the golden core cultivator. Now the shadow shift great art is not worth the value of the secret place, but for some of our heavenly profound continent northern part, it's already more than that. The fox reverend looks about 40 years old, because the face is relatively slender, and the spirit light outside is reflected in his face, and at the moment he speaks, obviously it is extremely unpleasant, and the surging sound is spoken. The yin-yin test, as if the cultivator was owed to him, what is the great treasure? Seeing the look of the blue fox reverend, extreme happiness's brow furrowed, and said, "By who reverend, is this secret place provoked you?" "Excuse me, fellow deist, I don't have any opinion on fellow deist." When I heard the words Reverend Extreme Happiness, the fox reverend reacted, and apologized to the grey robes and Reverend Extreme Happiness. Oh! Could it be that there is nothing hidden in the shapeshift great art? Reverend Extreme Happiness took a deep look at the fox reverend. "Fellow deist will see you." The fox reverend smiled bitterly, and the green light was put on the green, as if he had pushed the true UN. And with the green light treasure on his body, a splendid light of gold mixed with it also appeared outside his body. These mixed gold splendid light is actually a condensed chain shape, and there are countless tiny optical flow. Under the subtotal, there are a total of 12 such golden chains splendid light with the thickness of the thumb, which is put in and out from the body of the blue fox reverend, and is incompatible with the body of the fox reverend, true UN, and the spirit light. At first glance, it is a kind of restrictions. At a glance, such a lust scene, Wei Suo also immediately took a breath. This mixed chain splendid light is obviously not a shapeshift great art great treasure, but a shapeshift great art condense, but the powerful energy in each of the mixed gold splendid light is extremely terrifying, and the powerful energy does not weaken at all. Look like that. From this point of view, the cultivator of this restrictions was planted on the reverend of the fox, which is the divine ability of the great treasure. Seeing this scene, even the somewhat lazy Reverend Extreme Happiness has changed his face, looking at the blue fox reverend. "Don't you get the Northern Bright sect?" Wei Suo's brows suddenly jumped and couldn't help but look at Nangang Yuking, who was next to him. The Northern Bright sect was the great treasure of heavenly profound continent. It is the number 1 sect of heavenly profound continent northern part, which is the same top-grade great treasure sect as Mystic Wind section. It is one of the 10 great sects of heavenly profound continent, and in many rumors, the strength of Northern Bright sect is even more beyond Mystic Wind sect. It's not good to get northern bright section. Even if I am courageous, I dare not be against the northern bright section. If this matter is long, let me talk about it slowly, and it is really a matter of great treasure. It is related to each of our cultivators. I originally ran a glimpse of this matter, and it should be, but it was just forced. I am naturally very upset. In the smile of the fox, Reverend stopped the violent flow of true UN in the naked body. The mixed golden chain splendid light on the body also shrank back and disappeared in his naked body. What matters about great treasure, is it related to every cultivator? I heard that the Fox Core Reverend said that the many golden core cultivators present were even more puzzled, and the great treasure looked like a small eye. Reverend Extreme Happiness is also a suspicious look flashing in the eyes, nodded calmly, nothing, in the end. What is going on in this broken shapeshift great art crystal, you slowly said. This secret place and heavenly profound continent northern part are the farthest in the straight line, one bit at the northern end of the secret place heavenly profound continent, one bit at the southern end of the secret place heavenly profound continent, the middle is not knowing how many miles. So now, fellow deist, I am still not sure. Just a few days ago, on the heaven's dome outside heaven cultivating city, there is another gap. Blue Fox Reverend nodded and swept the cultivator and said. What? Heaven's dome outside heaven cultivating city, another gap. By who Reverend said this, a great treasure semi-golden core cultivator was present, and there was a vibrating look on his face. Yes, to you fellow deists insight, should great treasure many also know that, 30 years ago heaven cultivating city outside heaven's dome, was cracked a rift, there was no precaution lust condition, the beast tide hit, in have around all cities cultivator constantly go to lust condition, the whole heaven cultivating city or almost destroyed half, lost tens of thousands of cultivator, but also lost a lot of divine abilities amazing high level cultivator. Later, this secret place was blocked by heaven cultivating sect and 7 fiend sect, and many restrictions were set up. But from time to time there are still many high-level monster beast attacks. Reverend's eyes flashed, a little chilly. But just a few days ago, on a secret place heaven's dome, which was less than 2,000 miles from the crack at the time, it broke a great treasure. Although the number of monster beasts that have entered this time is not as high as this time, among the monster beasts that have entered this time, there are several level 8 high-level monster beasts such as the rotten corpse star. Therefore, even this battle, such as Yunfan Reverend and several other golden core 5th layers great treasure cultivator were alarmed. However, in this battle, more than 2,000 cultivators have been degraded. Even heavenly silkworm Reverend Qing Lingzi of heaven cultivating city has fallen into the hands of a dragon. What? Is this news true? Reverend Extreme Happiness's face had an unusually vibrating look. The body that was lazy and reclining was sitting up straight. Since this kind of great treasure has changed, how have we not heard this news until this time? Reverend Extreme Happiness, please be a little bit safe. Except for the news, I have even more amazing news. The Blue Fox Reverend took a deep breath, saw Reverend Extreme and the Presence Happiness Core Golden One Eye, Way. Coincidentally, in that same day, Cultivator Heaven Vatting City outside the Heaven's Dome appeared in Rift. Great Treasure War stopped 2 hours later. The cold outside of the Heaven's Dome also appeared a rift. The cold city was destroyed half, lost more than 5,000. Cultivator, a total of 3 golden core stage cultivator who participated in the war. A surging sound, the entire great treasure hall, suddenly is stunned. Almost all cultivators' faces drastically changing. I didn't participate in the Battle of the Chilling City, but I have a friend, loose practitioner, who participated in the battle. By who Reverend added another sentence. In one day, Heaven's Dome has 2 gaps in succession, which is something that has never happened before. Reverend Extreme Happiness took a deep breath, said this sentence with dignity. To count these 2, in the 10 years, the light in the heavenly profound continent northern part, has already split the 6th hole. Blue Fox Reverend looked at Reverend Extreme Happiness. Don't you say this Heaven's Dome, the surging sound of a female cultivator says that the sound of this surging sound is exactly the pair of Qingping Dao companion. When it comes to Heaven's Dome, her surging sound is no, I won't go on, but every golden core cultivator present is very clear about what she means. Could it be that this is overwhelming heavenly profound continent, who doesn't know how many years of Heaven's Dome, powerful energy is hard to support? And every golden core cultivator present is very clear, and it doesn't need to completely crash the entire Heaven's Dome. As long as it is within tens of thousands of miles, it will probably make the entire cultivation world usher in a huge great treasure of the catastrophe. After all, the number of Heaven's Domes outside the monster beast, I don't know how many times more than the cultivator. And many of the monster beasts seem to be very sensitive to the gaps of Heaven's Dome. Basically, every time there is a breach, it will trigger a great treasure scale. This is indeed a great treasure for each of our cultivators. After a moment of indulging in reverend extreme happiness, look at the fox reverend. What about the Heaven's Dome rip, the restrictions on your body, and the broken shapeshift great art? There were 2 cracks in one day, but the news did not reach us in this secret place. What is the reason? Fellow Daoist must be very clear. The Cleopatra city and Heaven cultivating city are the most northern part of the secret place, the middle is separated by 8 cultivator cities, and the Heaven's Dome outside the 2 cities has a gap, 1 day within the time, not to mention the 8 cities around the 2 cities, even around them, adding up to a total of 23 cultivator cities. All of the shapeshift great art arrays were destroyed. The fox reverend took a deep breath and said slowly, G Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziyi. Chapter 470. Chapter 470 Innocent Disaster. 23 cities of cultivator, all transmitted shapeshift great art arrays, all destroyed. This statement, not to mention the presence of cultivator and Weisuo, are all incredible looks. Even green-robed old man could not help but screamed in Weisuo's ear. You know, although according to custom, the heavenly profound continent part of the heavenly profound continent cultivator division is more area than northern heavenly sea continent, the southern region great treasure many, heavenly profound continent northern part cultivator city number is also more than heavenly profoundment the south and the west many more, but the number of these 23 cities is too amazing, but also equivalent to heavenly profound continent more than half of the cultivator cities. A city without the transmission shapeshift great art array, cultivator exchange is very difficult, time-consuming, equivalent to backwater, and a cultivator town, great treasure majority or heavenly circuit realm. The following cultivator, many of them do not even fly done shapeshift great art great treasure, is not even fly done surgery shapeshift great art are not necessarily, such as the shapeshift great art array was not transmitted, as in the case of Weisuo Divine Sea Realm Base, the range of activities was essentially within Cultivation Spirit City 2000. If you want to go outside the city for 2000 miles, you have to stay overnight in the wild. For all the low-grade cultivators, it is a matter of gambling. Because heavenly profound continent northern part is a monster beast in the wild, there are many places where heavenly profound continent is. There are so many cities in the transmission of the shapeshift great art array. What is the reason? Reverend Extreme Happiness thought of some connections and looked at the fox's reverend. Is it because the broken shapeshift great art in the shapeshift great art array is destroyed? Yes, the reason why these transmissions of the shapeshift great art array didn't work was all because the broken shapeshift great art crystals were all destroyed. The fox reverend nodded and reached for a tremble. 2 or 3 thin brilliances were scattered. It is this thing that destroys the shapeshift great art crystal. The golden core cultivator at the scene was all fascinating. I saw only a dozen brilliances scattered by the fox reverend in front of everyone. They were all small transparent crystal balls of a sparrow egg. Inside these transparent crystal balls, they are all solidified with an ant-like great treasure. Pa! 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 3 surging sound, great treasure treasure. Most cultivators are being suspicious, but only Reverend Extreme Happiness and Weisuo, and Spirit Beast Palace Lord Liruohe are three hands that directly reach the transparent crystal layer wrapped around the insects. The point was shattered, and the black insects inside were taken to the front by Xuanhuan. Seeing such a lust scene, the rest of the golden core cultivator was immediately reacted. The black worms in it were already naked bodies, and the transparent crystal layer on the outside was just wrapped up in order to preserve the worm's naked body. The papa sounded again, and the rest of the cultivators also shattered the crystal layers outside the insects, and wrapped the black insects in front of them. SS. A piece of cold air is sent out immediately. I saw a black worm in it, a skull that occupies the great treasure half-body naked body, is a pliers shape, the part of the naked body is almost the same as the ant, the body cannot see any eyes, tentacles, etc., and naked the body turned out to be harder than essence metal, and several golden core cultivators tried to squeeze with Xuanhuan, which was completely untouched. The most bizarre thing is that this black worm is obviously a monster beast, but its naked body is not even a stream of revelals. If you close your eyes and use divine consciousness to sweep, you can't feel it. It's like a group of air. It's Weisuo and others. Without shapeshift great art, you can use divine consciousness to explore the crystal layer. The black worm's corpse was brought to the front and used for the reason. N. At this time, it was the sound of a surging sound, but it attracted the attention of all golden core cultivators in the great treasure hall. I saw the dashing eyebrows star, very handsome, and the body of spiritual chi formed a four-winged tiger desolate in the hands of the spirit beast Palace Lord, but with a very thin silver knife. Liruohe, who took out the silver knife at the moment, made a stroke on the left side of the head of the black worm with the ants. It seems that the naked body seems to have no cracks in the black worm, but he cut a crack along the secret place and then slammed it. SS. Another burst of cold-sounding surging sound sounded. Liruohe took the knife and put it under the light, and a trace of blue-yellow Xuanhuan wrapped it out, and it took out a sesame grated from the cut head. Treasure little black with a yellow little dan came out. Monster chi on this little dan is very rich, it is a monster core. In such a small insect naked body, there is actually a monster core, and the monster core is small, but the golden core cultivator is felt. The monster core's rank is not low. Level 5 low-grade monster beast, we should not have a record of this in our heavenly profound continent. Liruohe gave a slight indulgence for a moment and slowly said such a sentence. Even supreme elder characters of Northern Bright Sect can't recognize this kind of thing. The Palace Master can be said to be the most authoritative person on the monster beast on heavenly profound continent. If so, this kind of thing should be the unnamed monster beast that has not appeared. Fox Reverend nodded, also not nonsense, said directly down, this kind of monster beast with divine consciousness have no shapeshift great art found, and not active attack cultivator, just swallowed broken empty shapeshift great art crystal, it seems to be the shapeshift great art crystal as its food, so many cities in the transmission of shapeshift great art matrix have failed, only to find that this kind of monster beast broken its bed. The shapeshift great the broken space shapeshift great art crystals in art array. This kind of insects will still have no surging sound. As the cultivator transmits and spreads out, it begins to destroy the shapeshift great art crystal. If it is not found, it may not be far more than 2 or 3 cities. The shapeshift great art array is damaged. Now I don't know if there is such a worm to escape. Since there are many fellow deists among the sects, I have to remind sect to do some precautions. It is best to send out the shapeshift great art array and add more. Take precautions. After the pause, the Fox Reverend swept the cultivator and added another sentence. The contact between the cities of more than 20 cultivators, the equivalent to being temporarily isolated as an island. The news naturally came out slowly. No wonder we didn't hear the death of heavenly profound continent northern part all cities until then. Reverend Extreme Happiness's eyes narrowed slightly. Breakfast Reverend, what about restrictions on your body? Restrictions in my body can be said to be innocent. Blue Fox Reverend smiled bitterly. These transmit shapeshift great art arrays are damaged. The sects in those cities are naturally trying to fix shapeshift great art and send some news out. Originally, I didn't have much great treasure relationship with me. After all, fellow deist knows that it is just a rogue cultivator. But that day, I happened to be on a secret place in the heavenly profound continent central region. I saw an escape light flying directly from my head. I just felt that the cultivator cultivation base on the escape light was not high. So, under the unhappiness of the heart, it is natural to stop it and prepare to give him a color look. However, I did not expect this person to be one of Northern Bright Sect's Supreme Elder, the Golden Core 4th layer cultivation base, but also concealing aura technique. I did not recognize this person. Anyway, the words are different, I just moved with this person. Northern Bright Sect's divine ability is so amazing, I naturally are not an adversary under one or two faces, and it is easy to hold. After holding me, this person is haha smile, saying that he can just let him drive less. The original percent experienced this heaven's dome one day split two cracks. Northern Bright Sect is also a sense of crisis extremely strong, sent a number of high levels cultivator, transmission message and 4 secret place acquisition broken empty shapeshift great art crystal, but also invited to heavenly profound continent northern part to cultivator to heavenly profound sea continent northern part some monster beast a number of places, carry out great treasure scale of the sweep, so at least can temporarily reduce heaven's dome outside monster beast density. Then even if heaven's dome broke a lot of holes at the same time, the scale of the monster beast influx would be relatively small. I just happened to be bad luck and arrogant, and the result was just a slap in the face of Northern Bright section. So, is this person who has restrictions on you, and then entrusted him with the things he has to do, Reverend Extreme Happiness, looking at the bitter smile, said the stunned Max Fox Reverend. Yes, this kind of restrictions is extremely difficult for others to solve. This person not only ordered me to spread the news in the Golden Core Cultivator, but also asked me to charge at least 3 broken shapeshift great art crystal intercourse, otherwise he would not help me to undo this restrictions. This kind of restrictions is not removed in one day, it is a day that cannot be cultivation, and the cultivation base is stagnant. Blue Fox Reverend sighed. Fortunately, this person gave me some blue flame marrow washing pill and a divine talisman. It's not too much. I heard that the Fox Reverend said the secret place, this is a matter of course, everyone can say that it is completely clear, but the heavens dome groove, the heavenly profound continent northern part all cities actually caused such a great treasure, this news, but it is a bit heavy in the hearts of all the cultivators present. This is a broken shapeshift great art crystal, you can give me 10 blue flame marrow washing pill just among the many cultivators. The spirit beast Palace Lord Liruohe is reaching out, a prismatic pale yellow crystal stone that flies directly to the front of the Fox Reverend. Thank you for the Palace Lord. The Fox Reverend immediately got a high, took out a sapphire pill bottle and ordered it in front of Liruohe. Since the change of northern part all cities, the next break of shapeshift great art crystal, also intercourse exchange for blue fox marrow washing pill and deo rank lower shapeshift great art great treasure, fellow deist. Another almost identical shapeshift great art crystal flew out, suspended in front of the blue fox reverend, and took out the broken shapeshift great art crystal, but it was Luchi next to Weisuo. This shapeshift great art crystal is also my cloud-piercing sword sect for the recent part fellow deist. Another broken shapeshift great art crystal flew to the front of the Fox Reverend, taking out the shapeshift great art crystal, which is the spiritual chi of the rainbow Sinakrai sword sect sentimental sword reverend. In an instant, 3 broken shapeshift great art crystals are full. These golden core cultivators, the rich things on the body, are indeed not comparable to the general cultivator. Heavenly profound continent northern part cultivator is usually irrelevant to these cultivators, but if heaven's dome breaks down, the cultivator of heavenly profound continent northern part is a shield that is blocked in front, so these cultivators don't care at the moment. It is dedication. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziwei. Chapter 471. Chapter 471 wants you to take a hot spring. This is a star-shaped steel that has been internalized in a naked body of a million-year-old beast. I intend to use this to change. Vertex Novels hit the novel. After inquiring about the news of heavenly profound continent northern part to Baihu Reverend, the intercourse will be followed by the storm. Things like this kind of intercourse are all useful for the golden core stage cultivator. Naturally, they are extremely rare and rare. There is just one thing inside, and it is placed outside the auction, even Weisuo. The kind of thought division realm cultivator that participated in the auction will definitely cause a sensation. But because everyone needs something different, plus their golden core cultivator does not lack spiritual stones at all, so the smaller half of the golden core cultivator is intercourse and can't change what you need. Like Weisuo, he later wanted to intercourse for a spiritual herb that would allow him to fill a half of the water spirit root in the naked body, but there was no intercourse. For the Reverend Extreme Happiness to attack his Divine Consciousness Impact Class Shapeshift Great Art, Weisuo is also very coveted, because Weisuo's Divine Consciousness is much higher than Reverend Extreme Happiness. If you get this a Divine Consciousness Impact Class Shapeshift Great Art, Golden Core Third Layers Cultivator and Weisuo are bound to be killed by Weisuo 1 or 2 faces. However, this kind of Shapeshift Great Art, Weisuo did not mention it at this intercourse. Because all cultivators can't give someone else a sharp thread to their own Shapeshift Great Art intercourse. For example, Reverend Extreme Happiness is now less Divine Consciousness than Weisuo. If you give Shapeshift Great Art to Weisuo, Weisuo, in turn, against him is a deadly threat. Therefore, the presence of the cultivator, even with the Divine Consciousness Impact Class Shapeshift Great Art, cannot intercourse to Weisuo, otherwise it is like putting your life in the hands of Weisuo's. As for Weisuo's Vajra heart refining method, which is used for intercourse and for the sake of the door, it has been considered. Because the upper half of Hidden Dragon Bead Spitting Secrets is hidden, the main thing is to hide the line, but basically the cultivation base is above the thought division for 5th layer. It is already difficult to hide the line by the Shapeshift Great Art. Like Weisuo's Divine Consciousness, if a cultivator uses this hidden concealment, it will certainly be deceived within the scope of Weisuo 300, and it will be discovered by Weisuo. Don't want to attack Weisuo's. So for the Golden Core cultivator, the upper part of the Shapeshift Great Art is mainly a cover for his cultivation base, which astringes the spiritual chi, so that the other side can despise his role. This is not a problem for Weisuo. In any case, Weisuo is generally not motivated, and other cultivators want to provoke him. When you move it, Weisuo will not be underestimated. After a total of more than 1 hour, the entire intercourse will end. After the end of the intercourse, Reverend Extreme Happiness is also a polite one. Let these Golden Core cultivators stay for a few days. In fact, Reverend Extreme Happiness is also very smart, and he is also very clear that unless there is a mist raining intercourse lust, the general cultivator is not likely to stay in a cultivation base much higher than himself, and can kill his cultivator at any time. Beside me. When the current host Reverend Extreme Happiness announced the end of the intercourse, all the Golden Core cultivators left, and Weisuo did not have too many guest sets with Reverend Extreme Happiness, and also with Nangong Yuking and Reverend Black Wolf. Lucci left the Extreme Pleasure Palace. When leaving the Extreme Pleasure Palace, the four didn't talk much, but after flying away from the Extreme Pleasure Palace, Reverend Black Wolf couldn't help but speak. Fellow Daoist Wei, I have something with Lu fellow Daoist. I will not be with the two first. When I heard Reverend Black Wolf say this and looked at Reverend Black Wolf and Lucy, Weisuo's couldn't help but sigh a surging sound. In fact, Weisuo think Reverend Black Wolf and Luch these two are not bad, is some not intercourse, but now Wei Suo's heart also very clear, these two people know not deep, at this time to see their own divine ability after, to himself is also full of scruples, in addition to oneself is offended that heaven catching reverend, and from reverend extreme happiness hands for Nangong looking out, also don't know reverend extreme happiness heart will be what kind of want to shape-shift great art. So at the moment two people are afraid and their own together what trouble, so just want to leave separate. Since the two have something, then it is now here although the heart of a dark sigh is surging sound, but Wei Suo face is only a slight smile, sincerely said, this extreme pleasure, or more rely on Palace Black Wolf help, and I and two are also a see as therefore, to tell the truth, I also have a heart not intercourse to, but in the whereabouts of the next, if two have anything to find me, to these shops leave a message or a token, in the next nature will know. After saying this, Wei Suo reached out and put a piece of cyan jade talisman in front of them. Since fellow deist Wei is so able to see it, there is a chance to find fellow deist. When I heard the sincerity in Wei Suo's words, Reverend Black Wolf and Lucy were both dignified, and they all shook hands at Wei Suo, then took cyan jade talisman in their hands and used divine consciousness. Sweep it again. On the golden core first layer cultivation base, the cultivation base is extremely difficult for every breakthrough of the first layer. It is not a bad thing to have a friend of divine ability. If that's the case, then let's go ahead first. Wei Suo didn't say much. After arching the two men, he immediately gave Chi fire boat and left. Reverend Black Wolf, what do you think of fellow deist Wei? Looking at Chi fire boat, which turned into a black-red escape light, Lu Chi suddenly asked. Fellow deist Wei, this person's divine ability is somewhat unimaginable, I am afraid that the two of us add up, and it may not be his opponent. Reverend Black Wolf is the color road. I am not talking about his cultivation base and divine ability. Lvich turned to look at Reverend Black Wolf and said, I mean this person is a person, how do you look? This person should be a good person. When he heard Lu Chi say this, Reverend Black Wolf indulged, saying, he was with the three cultivators of the Thought Division Realm cultivation base and went to my house. I just met him and saw the three Thought Division Realm cultivation. The base's cultivator is extremely reassuring and trusting to him. I think this person should be the person who can get intercourse, so I brought him to this secret place. Not to mention how he and Eastern Jade Paradise's grievances are, it seems that today he is deeply concerned about this female cultivator lust, and he has been separated from this female cultivator for so long, and he has tried every means to rush to the Extreme Pleasure Palace. Not afraid to anger Reverend Extreme Happiness, ask Reverend Extreme Happiness to ask this woman. This person is really a lust, heavy lust righteous person. To tell the truth, I am also looking at shapeshift great art like you, fellow deist Wei. This person seems to me to be deeply intercourse. Lucy looked at Reverend Black Wolf and blamed it. In this case, why did you need a sound transmission before let us separate from him? We should also go with him this time, for fear of heaven catching Reverend and Reverend Extreme Happiness. The revenge and excuses are separated from him, which is really not in the righteousness of friends. I know that I propose to be separated from him. It's a bit wrong, but we don't have much great treasure with secret place. If heaven catching Reverend and others or Reverend Extreme Happiness deal with him, with our strength, it will not help. Whatever is busy, just dying, maybe it will drag him down. Reverend Black Wolf smiled bitterly, it's better to use it as an excuse to separate him from this secret place. In the future, he will intercourse with him, and be honest, what good secret place is good for him, don't forget him. You are right, with his divine ability, there should be no problem with it. Let's go. After Lu Chi was indulged, he did not say much. Soon Reverend Black Wolf and Lucy's escape light disappeared into the sky outside the Extreme Pleasure Palace. Nangong looking, Reverend Extreme Happiness, have you passed on heaven balance great art and what special cannot be passed on secret? After being separated from Reverend Black Wolf and Lucy, Wei Suo on Chi Fire Boat immediately looked at Nangong looking with a dignified look. Are you afraid that Master will deal with us? Nangong Yuking immediately saw Wei Suo's thoughts on shapeshift great art. He shook his head and said, "Heaven-catching Reverend may also deal with us. As for the master, there is no need to worry." "Why?" Wei Suo couldn't help but groan. "I heard that his temper is very weird. There is a concubine that seems to be just a little bit of a cultivator." He took the concubine's hands down and gave it to the cultivator. Finally, even the cultivator was killed directly. "I knew that you probably heard this rumor," Nangong Yuking said in a strange way, "although it is true, it is only outside the cultivator that I don't know the original committee. His concubine was originally responsible for some purchases of the Extreme Pleasure Palace, but it was related to the cultivator. The thief was discovered by Reverend Extreme Happiness, and the concubine that the cultivator lured him also wanted to pass. Concubine gets some of Reverend Extreme Happiness. That Reverend Extreme Happiness was just a problem, killing the cultivator. This matter also has some ugly meanings, so the thing behind it is not known outside. You should not say it. In fact, he is still good for his concubine and disciple on weekdays. The female disciple of Extreme Pleasure Palace also has a precedent for forming Deo companion with the outside cultivator. So, I have misunderstood him before." Wei Suo suddenly sweated. "I was holding my heart and asking him to ask for you." "You asked him to ask me what I want to do." Nangong Yuking's face was slightly red, and the waves of the eyes flowed like water, and there were many unclear lust threads. "Dui Isuo." He smiled and turned his eyes. He said, "I want you, I want to have a hot spring with you. You remember, you still owe me a hot spring together. You are still as slick as before. It's already a golden core great treasure cultivator, and it's still, nothing has changed." Nangong Yuking, a helpless look, sighed. "Well, now you can tell me how you have such a cultivation base." "Where is my mouth?" Squeaky, Wei Suo. He smiled, but suddenly it was a brow, turned and looked back. "It seems that I have to wait until you can talk to you slowly." Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 472. Chapter 472 Pure Void Vine Messages. After saying this sentence, Wei Suo immediately received Chi Fire Boat, but it was the one that Feng Xiu gave him. Vertex novels, handwriting novels. At this time, it was late at night. This piece of the shapeshift great art great treasure, which was circulated in the ancient net lotus, flying in the black night sky, without any escape light. "Is there any cultivator or is it a monster beast?" Nangong Yuking immediately asked a little nervously, looking at the sky behind, but it was empty and could not see any escape light. "I walked along the way behind us and laid out a shapeshift great art bead from the Eastern Jade Paradise cultivator. The shapeshift great art beads are also suspended in the air like water, without any origin chi fluctuations, but with the cultivator passing, it will break open. I will feel it here. Monster beast will not make this shapeshift great art beads broke open. Now there must be a cultivator chasing us, just not doing shapeshift great art to know who it is. You put on this shapeshift great art suit," Wei Suo explained quickly, and reached out, but took two invisible shapeshift great art clothes from the treasure receiving pocket. Mind-devouring bugs invisible shapeshift great art clothing. Wei Suo originally had one piece, and later his mind-devouring bug's lower skin was better than his original mind-devouring bug elder's skin. Back to heavenly profound after continent, Wei Suo used the skin of his arm to find the artificer who helped him refine the invisible shapeshift great art, and helped him to refine it. "Wei Suo, you turned and went." Wei Suo quickly put the invisible shapeshift great art on his body, and Nangong Yuking suddenly said this to him. Turned around, Wei Suo suddenly bowed, and there was some reaction at the moment. What did Nangong Yuking mean? "My shawl shapeshift great art is in conflict with other shapeshift great art clothing." Nangong Yuking glanced at Wei Suo and said. Here, Wei Suo understands that Nangong Yuking had to take off the white palace dress shapeshift great art and then replace it with the invisible shapeshift great art. "Wait a moment." Next, Let Nangong Yuking worry that Wei Suo quickly took a black skin thing like a small crock from his arms and earned it in the treasure receiving pocket. Wei Suo, you have something that has the opposite sex. Even this does not let you see. At the same time as it was included in the treasure receiving pocket, the black stuffed shingling can still reveal a surging sound of a surging sound. No problem. After quickly collecting this item, Wei Suo immediately promised, "You can change now, I promise not to peek." Then you turned and went. Nangong Yuking glanced at Wei Suo and said, "All right." Wei Suo shook his head in secret and turned around. In the face of Nangong Yuking, Wei Suo is also very helpless. Because when she met Nangong Yuking at the beginning, Nangong Yuking treated him like a great treasure sister. He taught him a lot, took him to the auction, told him not to squander spiritual stones, etc. So until now Wei Suo's the cultivation base has been far past Nangong Yuking. In the face of Nangong Yuking, Wei Suo is still facing a great treasure sister. Many wretched and shameless in front of her is not used. Moreover, Nangong Yuking has also been distilled from the low-grade cultivator with little background. It has been a long history, and the life and death scenes have gone through much, so it is relatively simple to act, not as shy as the most precious female cultivator. If Han Wei is changed now, if you want to change shapeshift great art clothes, Han Wei must be arrogant and pretending to be a fierce look. If Wei Suo says that you dare to peek at the old lady, how will you wait, etc. The more so Wei Suo, maybe, the more it will be very wretched to make a point out of the movement, take the opportunity to steal the shamelessly. However, Nangong Yuking simply called Wei Suo to turn around and did not say that Wei Suo would peek at it. In this way, Wei Suo was really embarrassed to peek. Looking at Wei Suo, there was some shapeshift great art, and the obediently turned look of the dejected, and the eyes of Nangong Yuking showed a smile. There is nothing wrong with it. Nangong Yuking took off his shapeshift great art dress outside, leaving only underwear. Although her face is not as refined as Jia, her appearance can only be described as proud. If Wei Suo really peeks at the moment, or scans with divine consciousness, it must be hurried to swallow. No problem, there was no stop. After Nangong Yuking put on the invisible shapeshift great art, he immediately caught True Yuan and inspired the invisible shapeshift great art. First look at who is going to say it. I saw Wei Suo nodded, and also inspired the invisible shapeshift great art clothing, but then slowed down the flying speed of the Nethuaphelion, and fell to the bottom of the mountain. The great treasure was only after the time of the half stick of incense, and a nearly transparent streamer, swept the direction of Wei Suo and Nangong Yuking for the shapeshift great art. This transparent streamer is a fishtail-shaped flapshift great art great treasure, which is almost completely transparent and looks like a piece of ice in the air. The speed of this flying spoon shift great art great treasure is amazing. It doesn't seem to be under Wei Suo's chi fire boat, but the model is very small, only one person can stand on it, and no shapeshift great art carries many people. At the moment, above the flying shadow of the shapeshift great art great treasure, standing is a bald-headed yellow-robed middle-aged cultivator with a complex face, and the spiritual chi outside is a condensed cyan bead. A secret place in the mountains outside the valley, even the Nethuaphelion has been collected, no surging sound. Wei Suo staying in the mountains, the eyes are also fierce, flickered for a moment, the face also appeared surprised look. In this black suit, it is reasonable to say that under such a distance, there is no shapeshift great art at all to see this bald yellow-robed middle-aged cultivator. But at this moment, from the perspective of Wei Suo's god-lust change, it is obvious to see this person. This bald-headed yellow-robed middle-aged cultivator is the cultivator that took the Vajra heart refining method to intercourse. Before, Wei Suo also listened to Reverend Black Wolf and Lucy. This person is named Cai Kuei, and the other is Shapeshift Great Art Reverend, also a rogue cultivator outside of Heaven's Dome. But this name rogue cultivator and heaven-catching reverend, there is no intercourse lust and related, and this person is only the cultivation base of the golden core first layer, it is impossible to say that you want to rush to kill people. And his cultivation base, if it is against the hostile Weisuo, is estimated to be 1 or 2 shots to be killed. It should not be possible to rush to intercept Weisuo, waiting for other cultivators to deal with Weisuos. It was such a cultivator that caught up with this, which made Weisuo somewhat unexpected. We will talk to him when we go out. After a little indulging, Weisuo said this to Nangong Yuking and resupply Jinghua Filian. N. The bald-topped yellow cultivator, which was looking for a pattern in 4 secret places, suddenly changed his face and turned to look sideways. I saw that Weisuo, who was carrying the net Hua Filian, did not know when he had reached the sky behind his side, and looked at him calmly. Fellow Daoist Wei. Although the heart was full of horror, but this bald brown cultivator did not dare to have any scorn, for fear that Weisuo violently shot himself, and quickly arched his hand toward Weisuo. Are you tracking me where I am? What is it? Weisuo did not move the surging sound and looked at the cultivator at a glance, very straightforward. Fellow Daoist Wei, don't blame. The next reason to catch up with fellow Daoist Wei is indeed something that is inconvenient to say in front of other cultivators, and to meet with fellow Daoist Wei. The bald-top yellow-robe cultivator fixed the mind and said with a strong smile. Only when he chased him completely lost Weisuo's trail. If Weisuo suddenly ambushed him, he might not have figured out what was going on, and he was already dead in Weisuo's hands. Oh! Hearing this cultivator, Weisuo and Nangong Yuking couldn't help but look at each other. At the moment, the 2 people dressed in mind-devouring bug leather, the shapeshift great art clothing, did not inspire. It looks a bit strange. What is the matter of lust to negotiate with me? It's also simple to say that there is a secret place cultivator ruins, there should be some great treasure, but there is a level, but relying on fellow Daoist's divine ability to unravel. I am chasing fellow Daoist. I want to invite fellow Daoist. Went into the exploration of great treasure together. Seeing Weisuo's quick-spoken words, the bald-headed yellow cultivator squinted a little and immediately said. Ruins, what kind of ruins? Weisuo's vision flickered for a moment. So, you should have explored. It's an ancient Sex Mountain Gate ruins. The bald-top yellow-robe cultivator nodded and said, we have indeed probed several times and also found out the doorway. This is a matter of forgiveness. Weisuo's face was dignified and he shook his head. There are some things to do next, and no shapeshift great art and fellow Daoist enter the great treasure together. Weisuo refused at the moment because it did not lack the place to explore the great treasure. The next 2 or 2 secret places in the Bai site and green-robed old man were enough for Weisuo to explore. Among the ancient ruins, it is very likely that there are great treasures, but there are great treasures. Why does Weisuo not explore what you know, but cooperate with others? And to be honest, Weisuo knows nothing about this person. Exploring great treasure with a cultivator that he doesn't trust is very dangerous. In addition to listening to this name, cultivator said shapeshift great art, some things, such as the yellow robe cultivator, golden core cultivator, no shapeshift great art to deal with, need to rely on him to unravel. This kind of thing lust, Weisuo certainly does not want to do it. Fellow Daoist is still free to do it. I don't like intercourse at the end, and I don't like intercourse. Other cultivators follow me then, Weisuo added the sentence, ready to leave with the net Hua Filian. Fellow Daoist Wei, please consider that this matter was proposed by fellow Daoist, and he asked me to bring you the message. He knows the news of the thing you are looking for. Seeing that Weisuo was going to leave, the bald-topped yellow cultivator suddenly rushed up and said something like this. Fulo Daoist? Which is Li fellow Daoist? He knows what I am looking for? Weisuo stopped at once. It's Spirit Beast Palace Lord Li Ruohe. Not only him, but also Dragon King and Qing Ping. 2 fellow Daoist are also with us. Bald Robes cultivator urgency. Fulo Daoist knows about the pure void vine you want. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziyi. Chapter 473. Chapter 473 Qing Cheng Ruins, Succubus Deer. Li Ruohe. Wei Suo bowed, and there was some extraordinary in the mind. The spiritual qi on his body formed the cultivator of the four-winged ancient beast. Vertex novels, handwriting novels. Li Ruohe, the great treasure of the golden core second layer cultivator, was also very impressed by this intercourse. Yes, this matter is fiercely fellow deist personally intercourse. It was only because of my flying shapeshift great art great treasure that I didn't have shapeshift great art. I just rushed over. As soon as I saw something, lust seemed to have something to talk about. The bald yellow robe cultivator immediately said, if fellow deist is interested, let's send a signal and they will come over immediately. How do I know if Li Ruohe is really coming over? Besides, if they rushed over, it was not because of what you said about ancient ruin, but against me. Wei Suo looked at the bald yellow robe cultivator, said the surging sound color. With fellow deists' divine ability, you may not be afraid of the siege of several golden core cultivators. And if fellow deist doesn't believe it, after I send out the signal, I will go to the secret place next to fellow deist, so if fellow deist really finds it bad, you can kill me directly. The bald yellow robe cultivator smiled a surging sound and said, if I want to deceive fellow deist, I will not make a joke about my life. I don't have shapeshift great art, you should also know that I have to be careful in this secret place. Wei Suo nodded and said, if that's the case, then you can press the position of 50 feet after you send out the signal, but you should not cast any shapeshift great art device to avoid causing it. What is my misunderstanding? I naturally understand this. And what I cast is the spirit of the spirit beast palace. From this thing, fellow deist Wei can at least see that what I said is the fellow deist. After saying this quickly, the bald yellow robe cultivator immediately pulled out an arrow-shaped shapeshift great art and reached out. A surging sound of, I saw this shapeshift great art turned into a group of yellow flames rushing into the sky, forming a yellow flaming light with a length of more than 5 feet in the night sky, with its head facing down. It is aimed at the position of Wei Suo, Nangong looking, and the bald yellow robe cultivator. After a short period of time, Wei Suo's eyes moved slightly, and a dark blue light was revealed in the night sky of the secret place. In the twinkling of an eye, this group of blue light became more and more great treasure, and it was a group of tiny blue clouds. When the group of blue clouds arrived at the secret place in front of Wei Suo and others, it was suddenly received, and 3 figures appeared. The 3 men, 2 men, and 1 woman, are the spirit beast palace lord Li Ruohe and the Qi Longshan with the grey face and the golden core female cultivator Qingping. The small blue cloud of the group was collected into the hands of Qingping, but it turned into a small, light blue flower blue, which is very magical. At least one of the flying scorpion shapeshift great art great treasures that Wei Suo had seen before, not yet inspired, is the mist wrapped in the cultivator. In Li Ruohe, I have seen fellow deist Wei. Under Qi Longshan, this is the following fellow deist Qingping, I have seen fellow deist Wei. As soon as the original image was revealed, Li Ruohe and the pair of golden core couples immediately greeted Wei Suo with great politeness. I have seen the palace lord and fellow deist Qi, the green fellow deist, and the Cai fellow deist. I have some doubts before, and I am offended. Wei Suo arched the 4 golden core cultivators and there was no nonsense. You really want to invite me to explore the great treasure, and the palace lord. You really know that I have the pure void vine I want. News. Li Ruohe and other people looked at one eye, the remaining 3 people are mainly Li Ruohe general, also not out of surging sound, and Li Ruohe is a stretch of hand, inspired a sound insulation shapeshift great art character, a soundproof light cover, will all enveloped in, and then looked at Wei Suo nodded, Wei, yes, I really want to use fellow deist divine ability, and we go to explore great treasure. As for pure void vine, this is true, but I only know where it grows, not who knows. Who owns the pure void vine? Sure palace lord, you are sure that there is immortal slaying vine growing in that place, and it is now, has not been collected. Wei Suo sighed and looked at Li Ruohe. Li Ruohe looked at Wei Suo and nodded. The news is very certain. Li Palace Lord, since I didn't use this news to intercourse with me at intercourse, I seem to want to use this news as a condition. Invite me to explore great treasure with you, Wei Suo said without hesitation. Fellow Daoist Wei thinks well. In addition to these conditions, the income of the great treasure will be distributed fairly. It will not cause fellow Daoist to suffer because of the additional conditions attached to this news great treasure. Any cultivator that looks too handsome, it is easy to give a frivolous feeling, but Li Ruohe gives a feeling of being very calm, completely the majesty of sect master. Wei Suo thought for a moment, watching Li Ruohe and Qi Longshan and others say, I still want to know some about the context of this ancient ruin, can give a reply whether it is going or not. And I still have some doubts. With the face of fellow Daoist, you can invite other cultivators to go with you. Why do you want to find me a cultivator that you are not familiar with? We know a little about the character of fellow Daoist. Li Ruohe looked at Wei Suo and Nangang looking next to him and said, this matter has nothing to do with fellow Daoist Wei. The ancient ruin we are talking about is Qingcheng ruins. Qingcheng ruins, Wei Suo's brow suddenly jumped unconsciously, and he thought that he had 2 or 3 maps of Qingcheng ruins in his treasure receiving pocket. Something about this Qingcheng ruins, Lo Suo, Wei Suo has also heard, green-robed old man said. Looking at the look of fellow Daoist, I should have some understanding of this Qingcheng ruins. Wei Suo's look and change was immediately felt by Li Ruohe. Yes, I also read some records about this Qingcheng ruins in the classics, but as far as I know, this Qingcheng ruins is a secret place between heavenly profound continent and cloud spirit continent, away from heaven's dome doesn't know how many miles. Wei Suo looked at Li Ruohe and others with some dignity. Don't you guys fellow Daoist really go there? To tell the truth, I have not visited, but my number of disciples, but with fellow Daoist Qi and other 3 people, went to the secret place. Li Ruohe nodded. Qingcheng ruins is said to have been the ancient great sect ruins that existed before the formation of ancient heaven's dome. It is said that there are some shapeshift great art and artifact refinement materials that are extinct in our current cultivation world, but it is said that there are not many damaged restrictions that we are now cultivator, and there are still many high-level beasts, which are very dangerous. Wei Suo's vision flickered, since fellow Daoist Qi you have already explored. Don't you know if this Qingcheng ruins is really ruins of ancient sect? It is said that there are many high-level cultivators that have entered the tens of thousands of years to explore, but the great treasure is more degraded, but it is extremely dangerous. If fellow Daoist can see it there, he will find that the secret place is indeed the ruins of the ancient sect, because many of them, including some of the simplest rune shapeshift great art, are with us now. The cultivation world is even different from the ancient cultivation world. Eat Reverend Black Wolf's fly vinegar. Ate a lot of years of horseface cultivator Qi Longshan. Look at Wei Suo, a positive way. Qingcheng ruins range is also very broad, want all to explore. That certainly is impossible. We this plan the place to be drawn is just one of the secret places, and in our hands, there is a map of the secret place where ancient cultivator, together with the one we have already visited, as long as fellow Daoist Ken joins, the palace lord has shot himself, and we can certainly minimize the danger. Not to mention what must be obtained to great treasure, but get a good secret place, the chance of coming and going is extremely great treasure. As for why you choose it, there are 2 reasons. Li Ruohe glanced at Wei Suo. If I didn't misread, you used to be a top-grade spirit protecting ancient talisman when you were at the intercourse meeting and the Du Yi gambling. Oh. Wei Suo looked at Li Ruohe with amazement. The top-grade spirit protecting ancient talisman is rarely documented. I can't think of the palace master. For the sake of Qingcheng ruins, I have been planning for fellow Daoist Qi and others for 6 or 7 years. Considering the journey is extremely far away, my spirit beast palace has been looking for this to allow the cultivator to shuttle many shapeshifts in one day. The shapeshift great art, great treasure of great art, so I happened to find out the record of this thing. It's just that this kind of ancient talisman is rare, We didn't find it at all, just found a few ordinary spirit-protecting ancient talisman. Li Ruohe patiently said, now also may wish to and fellow deist plainly, fellow deist Chi they last went to Qingcheng ruins, is also through a secret place ruins ancient transmission shapeshift great art array, but that ancient transmission shapeshift great art array has been a bit damaged, powerful energy has been somewhat unstable, transmission process is very easy to great treasure problems, so to come to safety, we must arrive the city of Qingcheng, starting from there, is nearest to the ruins. With the top grade spirit protecting ancient talisman from fellow deist, it should be able to save at least a month or two. Listening to Li Ruohe, when talking about the ordinary spirit protecting ancient talisman, Wei Suos couldn't help but reveal a strange look. He remembered very clearly that Xian Yalan bought an ordinary spirit protecting ancient talisman at the auction. As for a more important reason, it is because of the secret place where Qingcheng ruins is going to explore, a succubus deer. And the succubus deer has been advanced twice, the magic sound, the general cultivator divine consciousness cannot resist, close to the scope of its magic sound, not its opponent, divine consciousness is not strong enough, more the golden core cultivator is useless. Li Ruohe took a deep breath, and then slowly said, you are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziyi. Chapter 474. Even if I want to abolish all of your cultivation practices, are you not hesitating? The voice of real bliss suddenly froze. Abolish all repairs, this is too cruel. However, this is understandable. In the identity of a bliss real person, when someone asks him to ask for someone, he can't naturally agree with him casually. Under such conditions, this female cultivator will definitely not agree. It is a big problem for bliss real man to show up, but this person seems to be a newly promoted Jindan monk who wants to be an important person equal to bliss real man. I don't even think of bliss. As soon as the sentence of bliss lived, the monks present were all gleaming, and the thoughts in their hearts varied. I know a few things about him now at the moment. Hearing Ning Ongyuking's face became whiter, but after looking at Wei Suo, most of the monks didn't think of it at all. However, she nodded and said softly, since he can be here at the moment, I must have the ability to protect me, even if I don't have a cultivation base, it will be fine. This sentence of Nangong Yuking said that many Jindan monks present were shocking one after another. It is important to know that for most monks, cultivation is more important than anything. And Nangong Yuking's cultivation at this moment has also reached Zhou Tianjing's fourfold. If it is abolished, it will take at least a decade or two of hard work to be able to get it back. Wei Suo was also shocked at the moment. Hearing Nangong Yuking saying this, he was full of thoughts worth doing whatever he did for Nangong Yuking. Very good, I didn't think there was such a disciple under my door. Bliss lively glanced at Nangong Yuking and Wei Suo. Since you say so, I don't abolish your practice, because after all, your most of the practice is still practiced before worshipping under my door, but you said that this person has the ability to protect you, I would like to try it. Otherwise, I will mostly accept female disciples. Come and ask me to go to the next one, and my bliss palace will soon become a lonely one, and all the disciples I have taught have helped them get married. Master, Nangong Yuking was anxious as soon as she heard the words of bliss. What are you in a hurry? Bliss lively smiled directly and interrupted Nangong Yuking's words directly. He gave Wei Suo a very deep look. Since I said it's just a try, naturally I will not bully and use all my strength. Furthermore, maybe he is willing to give it a try. After he paused, he didn't wait for Wei Suo to speak out, and Bliss looked at Wei Suo indifferently. Don't you just ask me what the conditions are? I don't have any conditions. Since you want to ask me for someone, naturally it needs some. The capital, and Nangong Yuking anyway, can also be regarded as my personal disciple. If she walks with you, but you can't protect her comprehensively, it will be a waste of my teaching to her. As long as you can stop my one, how can I let you take her away? And I can guarantee that I will not use any magic weapon or launch my spells, and I will not bully the small and use all my strength. Ji please think carefully. Hearing Bliss live, the black wolf next to Wei Suo and Lu Qi suddenly changed their faces, and at the same time heard the voice into Wei Suo's ear. The four monks of Jindan, even if they do not use their full strength, the power of a spell is more than several times the power of the monk of Jindan. The power is even more than the magic weapon of the top grade. In their view, the general Jindan, a heavy monk, is of course impossible to stop with a single blow. Ecstasy means that as long as I can block a real person's blow, I can take Nangong Yuking away. Are there no other conditions? But Wei Suo said calmly and quietly. That's natural. I always talk, and so many deists are present, they can all be witnesses. Bliss lived on the golden throne and said motionlessly. Okay, I promise you this condition. Wei Suo nodded without hesitation. No, Nangong Yuking saw that Wei Suo had really agreed to the challenge. It doesn't matter, I think real people will be merciful. Wei Suo looked at Nangong Yuking and said. Ji Daiyu, you have to grasp it yourself. If it doesn't work, immediately admit defeat, don't hold on. Real Black Wolf and Lu Qi glanced at each other, and sighed. Since that is the case, it would be better to compare in this hall. You paid attention, and I shot when we saw Wei Suo, I promised nothing. A bit of strangeness flashed in the eyes of Bliss. But there is no nonsense. After saying this sentence, the golden light suddenly lit up. Nor did he see any movements, and he did not stand up from the throne at all. Bao sounded softly, a transparent ripple-like ripple, but it exploded directly on Wei Suo's head. Wei Suo just felt a sharp tingle in his mind. Spiritual shock. In the hall, almost half of Jindan's monks changed their complexions at once. At this time, Bliss was cast by a real person, and it was a Wei Suo thought for a long time, but because it is extremely scarce, there is no magical shock spell that has been found so far. Bliss is a fourfold cultivation practice of Jindan. His consciousness is more than twice as powerful as that of Jindan. Using this kind of magical power to launch this technique, how can Jindan's heavy monk withstand it? It must be struck with a sudden shock, and he can't control the true element at all. This kind of psychic impact technique is completely a real cultivation for comparison, without any coincidence. And when this magical consciousness-like technique instantly hit Wei Suo, an oval golden brilliance flew out of the hands of Elysium. This oval-shaped golden brilliance looks like an oval-shaped golden lychee. It seems that it does not fly fast at all, but in the blink of an eye, it has already reached Wei Suo. Not to mention Nangong Yuking and Black Wolf, etc., the vast majority of Jindan monks in the hall at the moment saw a burst of chill in their hearts. The power of this golden brilliance is absolutely impossible to be lower than the magic weapon of the top grade. And even if this group of golden brilliance has a lower power, and they are replaced, under the impact of the Bliss real human sense, it must be like a living dead person at this moment. It can't launch any defense at all, and it can't resist. In other words, at this moment, many Jindan monks in this hall, if the real and the Bliss live against each other, it is very likely that they will be killed by the Bliss live alone. The four monks of Jindan and the one of monks of Jindan, together with such unskillful psychic impact spells, are indeed not at the same level. How is it possible? How could he not be affected at all? His consciousness is so strong. However, what made almost all Jindan monks present had an incredible look in his eyes was that at this moment, Wei Suo was not hindered at all. He reached out a little and a black light emerged from his hands. With a little finger, this black light snapped and collided with the golden luminous group emitted by Elysium. Immediately, the black light emitted by Wei Suo broke apart and turned into a fiery blaze. But the golden light group of Elysium has become only 1/10 of the previous size. It seems that the outer shell and flesh of a lychee have all disappeared, leaving only a small % core inside. In the face of this little golden brilliance, Wei Suo didn't even move, letting this small nuclear hit him. I saw that when the small percent core hit him, there was a flash of silver and yellow on his body, and then the small golden core like golden bloom disappeared. Humph, a cold hum uttered from the real person of bliss. But the blissful real person who made this cold hum, but also stopped his hand, as he said before, and no longer inspired any spells. Ji. Both the real Black Wolf and LV Chi are filled with incredible looks. Both of them can't believe it. Wei Suo was so understated, and also used no magic weapon to block the bliss real man. A blow. Thank you, bliss, the real person is complete and the understatement is general, and Wei Suo, who blocked the blow of bliss live by skill alone, but indifferently arched his hand against bliss live, which was considered a salute. I didn't expect you to have such magical powers, but I underestimated you. Bliss real man's face at the moment, but he could not see any anger, and after saying this lightly, he nodded to Nangong Yuking. In this case, from now on, if you want to leave with him, I will not be blocked. Thank you, Master. Nangong Yuking's heart was set at the moment, and her face was red. This technique is to change a disciple, which is also a part of the transaction. Bliss Live waved his hand, but in a non-related way, signaled that the fair could start again. Since this deist has set a precedent, can I also inquire about the news and solve some private things? Seeing Wei Suo wanted to go to Nangong Yuking, a majestic voice it suddenly sounded. Well, Wei Suo looked down the direction of the voice, but his brow was unconsciously wrinkled. The vocal monk was tall, wearing a purple robe, and the aura outside him formed the shape of a golden armored unicorn. It was extremely majestic, and he was really the real monk of the Jindan trio. Such as our practice, there are usually fewer people who can talk to us at ordinary times, less fun, any inquiries about news, such personal pastimes. It is also good, I think you should have nothing opinion. Hearing Tian Luo's words, Bliss lived with a slight smile. I wonder if Tian Luo's real people want to inquire. I want to ask this Taoist friend. Tian Luo lively looked at Wei Suo with a blank expression. Fang Cai's fire sharpening technique is so powerful that Tianqian continent is a place where I only listen. Say there is a monk who has this technique. If I haven't read it, should Taoist be Wei? Asterisk. There is a meeting for the Writers Association today, so the 3 can't be changed. The next chapter will be No Accident at 9 p.m, but if you ask for a red ticket like this, will you be beaten? Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 475. Chapter 475 is so straightforward. Wei Suo, where are we going now? On the net Huaphilian, from the beginning of the surprise, nervous and unbelievable to the present, standing next to Wei Suo, looking at heaven's dome outside the black night sky of Nangong Yuking, the look on his face is very calm. Vertex novels, handwriting novels. Let's go to MTMT, where there is an ancient rogue cultivator in the secret place. There are 3 friends out there. I see them unhappy and stay in Myriad Tomb City for a while. My current foothold is in Myriad Tomb City. Your current place is in Myriad Tomb City. Yeah, I didn't expect to meet Li Ruohe this time. I also talked to him about this intercourse. But in order to cause unnecessary trouble, I still can't let them know. Is Jie really your Dao companion now? Nangong Yuking stares at Wei Suo and seems to be looking at the difference between Wei Suo and the previous one. Suddenly he asks such a sentence. Do you know this? This sentence shocked Wei Suo, and for a time he didn't know what to interface. You are now famous for great treasure, looking for Eastern Jade Paradise to avenge, killing Li Xiahua, Huang Yazi, and Reverend Diao Shat. I heard about it. I heard that you are with Han Weiwei. I think it is called Wei Suo's should be you, but there are still some people who can't believe it. You have already formed a golden core and become such a cultivator. Nangong Yuking looked at Wei Suo. I didn't know that it was true until I saw you today. So, you heard the news about me, and when you go out, take the jade talisman, and from time to time, to see if I can happen to see it, Wei Suo asked. But I didn't have the hope of holding too great treasure, and I didn't expect you to always take this messenger jade talisman. The corner of Nangong Yuking's mouth showed a slight smile. Wei Suo flattened his mouth and didn't know what to say. I don't know why, in front of Nangong Yuking, he really is like a sister. Ordinary children, no matter how mischievous, how to swear, how to hooligan, in front of their sister, will be obediently. When Wei Suo faced Nangong Yuking, it was a bit like this. Usually, she was cheeky and wretched, and she didn't know why she couldn't use it in front of her. Now if you want me to come out, I will follow you. What do you want me to do? Nangong Yuking at this time, he looked at Wei Suo's eyes again and said, you can't use the hot springs and the like to stop. So direct. Wei Suo's watched the liver suddenly tighten. He certainly heard the meaning of Nangong Yuking's words, and he was prepared to secret place to talk about his relationship with her. However, in retrospect, the great treasure sister Nangong Yuking and his intercourse have always been very frank and very direct. Just like before in Spirit Peak City inside, just rented a heaven-grade residence, his glib want to shout her together hot springs, Nangong Yuking very seriously to him, want him to think well, because he really want to, and she became Dao Si Opinion, she is not cannot consider, but she will Wei Suo then don't regret, because then Wei Suo have not seen the world, have not seen how much outside female cultivator. It is precisely because Nangong Yuking is such a real attitude that there is no embarrassment, so Wei Suo has always been cumbersome in front of her. What do you want about shapeshift great art? Nangong Yuking. Thinking of the past, I thought that when I first saw Nangong Yuking wearing red armor, I was murdered, and thought of myself and Nangong Yuking living and dying in the Blue Wind Mounds Ridge. I thought she was wearing a white shapeshift great art robe. Join the auction with yourself. Wei Suo's heart couldn't tell the softness, but the look on his face was more and more serious. When Net Fifa Ilian flew freely toward the front, he turned and looked seriously. Nangong Yuking, said. Would you like to be my Dao companion? Looking at him because he looked at him, he seemed to think that he suddenly became mature, not the same as before, and Nangong Yuking, Wei Suo, who was slightly worried, asked this sentence seriously. Nangong Yuking stunned, and immediately she gave Wei Suo a look. What about Ji Yat? My lust means she understands. Wei Suo smiled in the face of Ji Yat, and smiled slightly. Now, just look at what you mean. If I become a person's Dao companion, I will wholeheartedly treat a person, even if I die for him, I will never regret it, but that person must also be true to me, even if he is not with me, I must remember that I am his Dao companion, when I think of me, is also happy by intercourse. Nangong Yuking looked at Wei Suo. There are countless good female cultivators in the world. Maybe you have seen better, you will not like intercourse. I want you to be your Dao companion, but you have to think about it, so as not to regret it in the future. The world's good female cultivator is indeed countless, but there are few who can live with me, and have trouble together. If you have it, I guess it is unlikely that I will be too great with other female cultivators. Treasure intercourse, said. Wei Suo smiled and said nothing, but reached out to hold the hand of Nangong Yuking. That won't be necessary. Nangong Yuking didn't pull her hand out, let Wei Suo hold it, and the conversation between the two had already smashed the last layer of paper, and there was no need to say anything more. Looking at the endless black night sky, Nangong Yuking's eyes couldn't tell the calm. You have such a cultivation base and divine ability now, and people like the palace lord have to ask for you in the future. There will be the achievements of great treasure, people like you, and what we can couple with women. Then I have to be too busy holding the hand of Nangong Yuking. Her eyes were accidentally aimed at her bulging chest, and Wei Suo's head began to live again. You are a good person, but sometimes you feel too lust, too careless. Nangong Yuking glanced at Wei Suo, but he taught Wei Suo again. If you want to ask Reverend Extreme Happiness to ask me, don't worry about it at least, First of all, think about shapeshift great art, learn about divine of reverend extreme happiness after the ability and strength. Ask me again, you are so risky, you can't do this in the future. I'm working with the cultivator intercourse of the golden core 5th layer, it's not a pure adventure. Wei Suo pleaded with one sentence, but he came to the interest. Right, how did you worship him, what good secret place did you get from his hands? You may know that the people at our iron policy were ambushed by people from Black Fiend and Eastern Jade Paradise. There happened to be a cultivator passing by and saved me, and the cultivator was just a distant relative of mine, and her guru and Reverend Extreme Happiness were intercourse lust, Reverend X earlier. Extreme Happiness owed her master a lust, for I thought you had died in the hands of Eastern Jade Paradise, coupled with the thought of vengeance for iron policy. Her own cultivation base also only thought division realm, no shapeshift great art to help me, so she went to Reverend Extreme Happiness, seek lust. Reverend S has accepted me as a disciple. Nangang Yuking looked at Wei Suo and smiled. I didn't expect that. I stayed at the Extreme Pleasure Palace for so long. I heard that you almost directly took the Eastern Jade Paradise and the Juxing Palace. This is really in my heart. It hurts. Because in accordance with the rules of the Extreme Pleasure Palace, all disciples are not allowed to move freely until they have completed the Thought Division Realm 3rd layer, and they are obeying the Reverend Extreme Happiness. As for the good secret place of shapeshift great art great treasure, because I have been short under his door, I haven't got anything, or today he will definitely let me intercourse out. After Nangang Yuking smiled, he continued, but his shapeshift great art is very special. He taught me this Dao technique shapeshift great art. You may also use secret place for you. Oh. What is shapeshift great art? Wei Suo asked curiously. You are optimistic. Nangang Yuking took her hand out of Wei Suo's paws and saw her hands move. A group of oval gold splendid lights spurred out from her front, and the golden brilliance spurred forward. In the place of 2 or 3 feet, there is another group of elliptical golden splendid light appearing on the other side of the secret place. Immediately, the first group of golden splendid light was blown down, but it disappeared without a trace. It's a tricky great art that can confuse the opponent and make the opponent somewhat unresponsive. Wei Suo's heart was moving. He immediately saw that the first Dao technique shapeshift great art from Nangang Yuking felt that although it was full of powerful energy, it actually did not have any attacking power. The real attack was that the second golden splendid light that suddenly came out. With his divine consciousness, it was only after the second golden glory of Nangang Yuking was released. If the other party doesn't know the mystery of this Dao technique shapeshift great art, it is very easy for the enemy to get upset and react. Yes, this Dao technique shapeshift great art is called bliss precious light emission. The mystery of this Dao technique shapeshift great art is that there are many kinds of brilliance shapes. This is the enemy of the opponent, the other party is difficult to eat. The next Dao technique shapeshift great art is not such a shapeshift great art, it is difficult to guard against. Nangang Yuking looked at Wei Suo and said, this Dao technique shapeshift great art, I will tell you later. Good. Wei Suo nodded immediately, and the Dao technique shapeshift great art was of course useful to him. Then how come you have the cultivation base of the golden core stage, such a divine ability? Now you can talk to me well. Nangang Yuking looked at Wei Suo, a look of eagerness. That's about to start from the beginning. Introduce you to the individual first. I heard that Nangang Yuking said that Wei Suo had thought of something like it. He slammed his head and took out a black paste from the treasure receiving pocket. Wei Suo, you have something of the opposite sex, I am doing your great treasure. What scared Nangang Yuking almost was that he just took out the black stuff and sent out a surging sound.